Okay, good evening, everybody. Tonight we are joined by Mike from the Forest Plastics Working Group. The Forest Plastic Working Group bring together partners to focus on the reduction in single-use plastics in woodland settings. Tonight, Mike will tell us how we can reduce the use of single-use plastic in our woodlands and offer us some useful alternatives. So, Mike, I'll hand over to you and you can tell us a bit more.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah, and thanks for inviting me. I do appreciate it. I was just saying to Sarah before we started, I was in a woodland today and got absolutely soaked wet through. So if I start shifting around, it's because my pants are still wet and I stupidly wore jeans to this woodland. So I do apologise. So yeah, my name is Mike Appleton. I have got two roles at the charity I work for. So I'm a woodland officer. My area of work is really looking at the use of plastic in woodlands and also small woodland management as well. And then my other role is I'm the Trust Grants Officer as well. So we help organisations and landowners kind of all across the Dales and Nidderdale kind of do really good things when they need a bit of funding. So I thought I'd chat about these kind of 6 things tonight, but kind of blast through the first one really quickly because you're not really interested in that sort of thing. But I thought we'd look at just say kind of who the charity is, my Plastic Free Woodlands project, where we're up to with recycling plastic tree shelters and other alternatives at the moment. I put that as trials and tribulations because that is the kind of various trials that of alternative solutions to plastic art at the moment and some of the issues I've had with them. I do a little bit on our small woodland management program. I'm making a pitch really to see if the small woodland owners group have got members in the Yorkshire Dales and they fancy a small woodland management plan free of charge from the charity. And then I'll also talk about the Forest Plastic Working Group at the end. So, for those who don't know, kind of where Yorkshire Dales Millenium Trust is based, we're based in Yorkshire Dales, unsurprisingly, in a place called Clapham, where that A is. That is an awful looking map, and I keep meaning to change it. So we look after people, landscape, and wildlife of the Yorkshire Dales and surrounding areas, and that includes Nidderdale. And we also have projects in the Forest of Bowland as well. And not a picture taken this morning, but one of only a few days ago. That is at the view from our office. So we are probably situated in kind of an idyllic part of the world. It's somewhere that I enjoyed coming as a young boy to. It's kind of real kind of all creatures great and small kind of view of the world.
I was going to say last of the summer wine, but
yeah, we're not far from there. To be fair, and in fact, one of our donors is the daughter of James Herriot, who was Alf White, who actually wrote All Creatures Great and Small. So we're hoping to do some good stuff with them coming up as well. So I think the last thing you want to be doing is reading things on a slideshow, and as there are only a few of us, but that's the sort of thing that we do. So we were established in 1997 as a charity. We were set up by the National Park really to take advantage of Millennium Commission funding. The National Park couldn't obviously operate as a charity to take advantage of that money, so we were set up to do that, and we were classed as a grant giving organisation, effectively only supposed to be around for probably 5 or 6 years until that money disappeared, and we're still here 25 years later. We're not connected to the park anymore. You know, we are an independent charity, but we work really closely with the park to do great things for people, landscape, and wildlife. So some of the things we've done, we support the planting of the 1.6 million trees in the Dales and Nidderdale. We bring people from urban areas to the area, including refugees and asylum seekers. For respite, we give young people the opportunity to work and live in the Dales through apprenticeships and training. We restore hay meadows and help community groups do the same with pollinator patches. And as I said before, I'm a grants officer at the Trust, and we've probably over the last especially over the last year, we've probably around about £750,000 worth of grants that we have given out. I've not included other things like community housing that we've become involved in quite recently. There's all sorts of different things that we've become involved in. We've become quite an eclectic charity. Because I'm a woodland officer, my role is based around kind of 3 main strategy points. So that's woodland, hedgerow and landscape trees, and that's provided a grant program so people can actually plant trees in the Dales and combat ash dieback. We have our community section of that. So we've got a network of community tree nurseries across the Dales as well. And we're also looking to plant some kind of montane willow species in those as well. So we can really make a difference to the species mix in upland planting. We've got 3 woodland trainees at the moment. That bullet point's gone a bit weird. And it's interesting having trainees. The sector is really short of young people with skills at the moment. So the idea is that we give people like a year's training in various parts of the woodland sector, including arboriculture as well. And hopefully they go on and get a job. And touch wood, so far, the 3 trainees that we have had have all gone and got jobs in the sector. And then the final part is the woodland management program, which is kind of what I do. Bit of a brag, so just to show that we're not just a tiny charity. So that's kind of our stats of what we've done over the last year. We work in partnership with various organisations to do this. There's obviously lots of different types of money out there at the moment to get trees planted, all across from small woodlands to absolutely massive ones. We can't compete with that level of funding because we're a charity, and as I've said, we do all sorts of different things. We can't commit to kind of long-term maintenance payments. So what we do is we facilitate and obviously signpost people to those UCO projects and things like that. But landowners come to us because, firstly, sometimes they don't want to deal with the government, which is understandable, and they don't want to do kind of lots of form filling, and they want to support the charity. And as a result, we can get various kind of groups out and young people involved in tree planting, and actually make it a real kind of community project. This was a large scheme that I did with Till Hill up near Settle in the Yorkshire Dales. This was a tubed part of the planting was 1,500 trees, which we planted over the course of a week with various community groups, and that woodland is also connected to a 100,000 tree mixed woodland as well, which has a real kind of commercial has a commercial aspect to it, obviously, but also has a real community part of it as well. So we bring young people out and kind of people from different backgrounds and things like that to help us clear plastic from woodlands. This is the top 3 pictures are all in Snaysholm, where I was today, where the squirrel sanctuary is. In the Dales, and we've been pulling plastic out of there that's 25 years old plus, so it's not a pretty job. And we find that especially with involving young people in our projects, we all know how important a connection to nature is, and has been for a long time. But I think obviously the pandemic brought that home. But there's a real issue. I know how important a connection is because I live and work here, so it's really easy for me to go out and connect. But we bring people to the Dales to actually experience it, and that is the big issue. That is the barrier, is that the actual access to the nature, and obviously health and well-being as a result of that as well. And like most charities, we're lucky to have good corporate partners as well who don't want to greenwash, and they want to come out and actually get some good things done. You got 3 really different views there. So that was the hottest day of the year on the left-hand side, where we ended up with about 6 tick bites and 4 horsefly bites as well. It was not a most pleasant experience, but they didn't half pitch in. And then the bottom right, absolutely belting it down somewhere in Nidderdale. But it's thanks to volunteers that we're able to do what we do. My narcissistic photograph up there with a bit of a gun show on there. So this really is kind of why I'm speaking to you today. My plastic-free woodlands project has been running for 4 years now. It came out of a conversation with our board of trustees, and literally a throwaway comment. There was a photograph on a screen of a woodland we planted, and one of the trustees said, what we're doing about all these beeping, beep, beep, beep plastic tree guards we're putting out. And we thought, well, that's come from a trustee. We should investigate and see where we're up to. And from that became a project which is still running today. So it's based around kind of three facets really, and that's removing redundant tree tubes from the Dales originally, trialing alternatives to plastic use, and then feeding to a national forest research trial, which is still ongoing. Create a systems change in forestry, so where people can actually have advice and guidance on why you don't need to use a tube planting and what are the alternatives. And we've been really lucky to be, we won a public vote to receive funding to get the project off the ground from the European Outdoor Conservation Association. The Forestry Commission have also helped us in year 2 or 3 of the project, and our major funder at the trustees plays a People's Postcode Lottery. So we've done some really good things over the past few years. So we've collected, it's probably around about 250,000 tubes now from the collection hubs that we've helped to establish, which I'll explain more later and how you can access them. We've had plenty of volunteers who've taken part in the project as well. Projects like this don't work unless you've got a volunteer base, especially if you're a small landowner. There's no way you can go out and expect to be removing between 2,000 and 10,000 shelters to get it to a hub in a couple of weeks. It does take time to do. We've planted a lot of trees at trial sites across the Dales. I've got 10 trial sites across the National Park and Nidderdale where we're trying different ways of planting trees without using plastic. And we've established the Forest Plastics Working Group, which I'll come to a little bit later on. The recycling scheme that we helped to establish, I've put this slide in the wrong place, I've just realised, but it kind of gives you an indication of where the sector is up to at the moment. So 2023 was probably the first time that the sector came together as one through a Forest Plastic Working Group to actually see if we could get some material to Tubex to be recycled. So the figures are pretty, on the face of it, are pretty impressive. 350,000 shelters that we came together to send to Tubex for recycling. That's really good. But I did some research just before I came onto this today, and there are estimates that we're putting out between 14 and 24 million shelters a year in the country. So those figures don't make me feel as great as they look there, but we've obviously got to start somewhere. The project is all based around the waste hierarchy, and I'm guessing some of you have seen this before. And whenever I go to talk to landowners about plastic and how they're using it in a woodland and if it's needed, I do kind of take this with me and show them on the phone that this is how we should be looking at reducing the impact of plastic and waste everywhere, really. So preventing the use of it, reducing the use of it, reusing it, and actually recycling comes quite far down that list. I think the problem the sector has got at the moment is we almost have gone to the fact we're using it and then we can recycle it, and then there doesn't seem to be a look at the actual preventing its use and reducing its use as well. And that's down to a number of things. Probably it's something we've always done. It's probably still the current kind of grant structure is based around your trees need protecting. You will not get your grant unless your trees are protected. And if that's the case, then people will use a plastic tree shelter because it's the cheapest way to do it as well. So it's something the Forest Plastic Working Group trying to do is actually give people advice and guidance on kind of how to flip that around a little bit as well. And we have had some success, as I'll show you a little bit later on. And I know this is another one that I show to landowners when I visit them as well. You can see they really like me when I turn up and I just show some weird diagrams to them. But the society is supposed to be moving to a circular economy, and the use of plastic tree shelters and the use of alternative tree shelters doesn't fall within a circular economy. What I would say is the plastic tree shelters can be part of a circular economy if they're recycled as well. The problem is they're not being recycled at the moment. So please bear that in mind. I wanted to give an example of somewhere that I've been involved in who has kind of undergone the journey from using an absolute ton of plastic to becoming quite anti-plastic and looking at different ways of doing it. Now, all these case studies have caveats. You know, there's no kind of one solution fits all in these, but we've got various case studies on the Forest Plastic Working Group website, which will kind of demonstrate people who've reduced their plastic use or tried different things. And this one is on there as well. So this is Beamsley, which is just outside Skipton. Quite a large planting over the last 14 years, more than 40,000 broadleaf trees, and predominantly funded through ourselves and also Forestry Commission grants as well. You can see some of the issues there. So the landowner used plastic tree shelters in 2008. There was around about £36,000. They were damn sight cheaper now, to be fair. And you know, so therefore he's had probably 15, 16 years of actually looking at the trees when they come out of the tubes and what actually happens to them. And that picture on the bottom right probably sums up. It is quite a windy site, but it's not compared to some of the other upland sites that I work in. And you can see that the trees have they've kinked to the left as they've come out of the tube. And he didn't intend to set up his vision for the woodland wasn't as a commercial woodland, but he's a canny bugger, this fella. So he is business minded. So I think he thought, if some of the trees came out quite straight, there might be quite a nice kind of commercial angle to that. But basically all he's got is firewood. And he's quite adamant that if those birch trees at the bottom there were not in shelters, that they would be nice and straight and would be perfect to be used in various kind of timber products. I'm not massively convinced, really, but I guess you wouldn't get that kind of kink in the middle. It shows how ridiculous the system was, but he had 1,000 trees left over from the planting in 2008, and he had to get permission on his own land to plant them without shelters, which is just it's baffling, really. That was kind of the regulatory system around, particularly Forestry Commission grants. Back then as well. So he got permission, and lo and behold, I wouldn't be showing you this case study if it didn't work. He's got some wonderful trees. He's managed to get health, as he says there, healthy and straight trees, even at 1,000 feet. And they're doing really well. And this is what the woodland's like today. So what he has had is the trees that have been planted there have seeded really well, and have created this almost haven of natural regeneration. And unfortunately, this is normally a video, but for some reason the video won't play. But you cannot walk through how thick this area is with regeneration. In fact, he probably needs to go back in and start thinning it out a little bit as well. Now, there's various reasons why this has happened. The soil there, this part isn't predominantly agricultural land, but it is kind of very, very fertile. He has been quite adamant in terms of no plastic use, but also kind of deer control as well. So he has had shoots on his land in the past, obviously pheasant shoots and things like that. And his gamekeeper is quite keen on reducing the number of rabbits and deer as well. So yeah, it depends which way you kind of fall there. I'm not a massive fan of kind of deer culling and rabbit culling and things like that. I think I think there's probably things we can do before we get to that stage, but it just shows what can happen when you've got a landowner that's prepared to kind of buck the norm, is prepared to control deer, is prepared not to use plastic, and this is what you get. So yeah, I like showing that case study because it is a kind of a good example of what can happen when you've got a committed landowner. So I think if you've got existing plastic in your woodlands, these are the questions I think you should be asking before you consider kind of if you're going to be doing some restock and what you're going to use or alternatives. It's kind of what you need to do, or questions you might have around the existing plastic that's on your site. So quite simply, do you know what plastic you had in your woodland? Is it PP? Is it spiral guards? you know, what different types are there. As I said before, some of the woodlands are now removing plastic from are 25 years old. So we're getting some really weird and wonderful hard black plastics coming out of those places, which are really difficult to recycle. Are you able to map it? And I don't mean you need to kind of jump on kind of GIS to do that. The My Silver project that is online, the woodland management stuff in there is pretty good. And even, you know, it's that old adage of back of a fad packet. As long as you kind of know where it is, then it will help volunteers that I could bring to your woodland to help remove it. Can it be removed without further damaging the tree? It's a problem with volunteers sometimes as well. You know, they will attack a guard with a Stanley knife, and then it's you know, your tree guard folds off rather nicely, and then you've got big slits all down the tree, and that is the last thing a tree needs when it's come out of a plastic tree shelter. There's things to consider once a guard is removed. So with oak trees, hares and rabbits and deer, grey squirrels can absolutely batter it as well. So there's always that kind of consideration to make. You know, is that tree just about ready to come out of its guard? Willow can be damaged quite easily as well. The deer love rubbing up against willow, and hares and rabbits really like holly as well. And holly take a long time to come out of those kind of shrub shelters as well, and they can actually be left for quite a while. So my adage is always that the trunk should be the size of a Coke can, or your preferred beverage of choice, before it can be removed, or if you can control browsing on your site. And if in doubt, leave it another year, providing that guard isn't in danger of coming off, isn't in danger of flaking and going into a water course or anything like that. You can leave it another year, but don't leave it too long. As you can see there, that's 1, 2 shelters that have been on there for a long time. I've tried a couple of times to try and get that guard off. It's going to take some serious cutting gear to get it off as well. And there's 85 stakes at the bottom of there as well, so not ideal. And then there's this little sausage I saw the other day as well. So that's a guard that should really have come off a long time ago, and the site hasn't been maintained properly, and that's why you're getting that bend there. For me, there's no way you can get that tree to go back straight. It might well, if you take it off, it might try and right itself a little bit, but I think you're always going to have that kind of that kink in the tree. There's some other things to consider as well. So at the present time, if you're managing a woodland and you have to do some restocking, or you're looking to kind of do a bit more creation in there, or a field either side, the Forestry Commission don't stipulate what protection to use like they used to. So there's opportunity to try different things. Obviously, economics come into that as well. You know, let's be honest with you, a plastic tree shelter, for argument's sake, is £1. An alternative is probably £2-3. So you know, that's quite a difficult decision to weigh up, really. Since 2014, the Forestry Commission grants say you must recover your plastic in your woodland. That is like subsection 84, paragraph D. Use special ink to see. We're working in the plastic working group to actually make that a lot more prominent within the Forestry Commission grants, especially part of UCO as well, just to at least to make landowners more aware of, in 10-15 years time, this is something you need to consider. The new UK Forestry Standard version 5, I think which is technically the standard that we need to adhere to from October this year, actually says that once your shelter has reached the end of its useful life, so effectively when the tree gets to that Coke can size, that it needs to be removed, and that also includes the biodegradable alternatives as well. So that's quite an interesting thing to consider, especially when biodegradable tube manufacturers are saying that you can use it and leave it. The UKFS says that you can't leave it. So for the new UCO as a maintenance agreement for 15 years, I know that some of the colleagues I work with in the south, I have to do the never eat shredded wheat still. The southeast are trying to get a management plan, a waste management plan put into that UCO document, or at least something that flashes up when you put it on, fill it in on screen, to say that I have a waste management plan in place. And it's something the Forest Plastic Working Group is looking to do, is actually put a template on the website that will enable you to do that. And personally, I think that every woodland should have especially if they've used fencing, especially the older type of fencing that may have had kind of all sorts of kind of creosote and things like that, should really have a waste management plan. Surprisingly enough, there's the question, have you got a waste management plan in place? It is worth writing one up. We can help you with that. And there are regulations around temporary storage of waste. So if you are taking tubes off your site, you're not supposed to leave them on your site for longer than, I think it is around about 3 months, but that might be changing quite soon. And then hopefully, if we can get, if you can get plastic away from your site, things like easy access, can groups get there? Can we get dumpy sacks to the roadside? And can you get access to a collection hub, which I will demonstrate now. So I'll just click all those on because it makes it easier. We realised at the Trust that it's all very well taking a volunteer group into a woodland and saying, can you remove those 200 tree guards and then put them in a bag, and what happens then? So we approached Tubex back in 2019 and said that we would like to come up with some way of making this a lot easier. We tried Tubex coming out to site and picking them up effectively from the farm gate, and we funded that as a charity. And then we also set up a central collection point to see which was the most cost effective. Unsurprisingly, it's economics of scale. If an Arctic truck can come to a reasonably accessible collection point and can collect 48 bags of tubes, it's a lot cheaper than them going to a farm gate with a van and then trying to go back and forward. And there's always issues of getting it to a farm gate as well. One thing we wanted to make sure happened was that we made it free at the point of use. And to make sure that the landowners we work with, the kind of small farmers who did the right thing years ago by planting trees, could, effectively to put them in their land rows and take them to a collection point, it wouldn't cost them anything. So we absorbed that as a charity. And what we found was that the collection point was the easiest way of doing it. So we took 60,000 tubes in over 12 days at 2 central points in the Dales. And we realized it could work. The only kind of drain on time was the state of the tubes that come to the collection points, and they had to be rebagged and things like that. And that's something that we absorbed as a charity. But we proved we could do it, and then we proved that we could help get the legislation in place to make sure that if a farmer flipped their trailer on the way to a collection point, they wouldn't fall foul of Environment Agency legislation or anything like that, which we wrote with the EA. So there's your collection hubs now. So I'm not kind of aware of where everybody is, where their woodlands are. You can probably see the work that I've done, really, because it's kind of all in the northwest. Let's take a sip of water. We've got quite a few in the northwest. Kind of there's 3 in the Yorkshire Dales and Keswick. And then as you come a little bit further south, quite a lot around the southeast and southwest. And these collection hubs, if you go to the tubex.com website /recycling, you can book in a slot at these collection hubs and drop your shelters off. These are publicly accessible sites, so the window for dropping shelters off is really is quite tight. One of the ones I operate at is at Craven Auction Mart, and obviously a really busy auction mart. So the last thing they need is kind of 6 months worth of plastic kind of clogging up the public areas there. So we've come up with a way of doing it. It isn't ideal. We are now trying to look at how we can have a hub in each of the national parks across the country, and also including Scotland and Wales, that is open 24/7 as well. But it's quite difficult in terms of waste legislation, particularly in Scotland, to allow waste to be collected at one site for for that amount of time. And basically what happens is the landowner will drop the shelter off. Probably not the greatest example there, because that lorry driver wasn't the best person I've ever worked with. But you can get probably a minimum of 48 bags on an Arctic. You can probably get 400 tubes in a bag as well. And we've had trucks that have left this particular collection hub with 90 bags on. So you can just imagine the amount of plastic that's being removed and taken to Tubex. We partner with Tubex because we were looking at that circular economy, and we wanted to make sure that everything that was recycled here would effectively go into making another product. We didn't want it to go to landfill or energy recovery, and Tubex were the only ones that could really offer that circularity, which is quite important. Now they're making new tree shelters, which is not ideal, because we're obviously removing tree shelters and then we're making new ones. But that's a lot better than, if you remember back to the Panorama documentaries of kind of 3-4 years ago, when we were finding plastic bottles from Britain in kind of Malaysia and things like that. So at least with Tubex, we know where the shelters are going. And to be really fair to Tubex, it's obviously a commercial advantage for them. This is effectively a raw material as well, and their aim is to get 100% recycled plastic guard out there in the next few years. So thank you for sticking with me on this. As I said before, we've got 10 trial sites across the country looking at alternative ways of planting trees. It's not so long ago that, I think, was it Oliver Rackham talks about kind of the fact that we almost created large exclosures, and we used fencing to plant trees, and we never even thought of a plastic guard or anything like that. Was obviously Graham Tooley in 1979, who did a bit of a trial for forestry research, and it was to design a guard that basically could get an oak tree going, and obviously succeeded. And now we're looking at kind of 14 to 24 million a year being planted being used in the UK. Just a couple of points from the new UK FS. So this is the guidance. So it's obviously not legally binding, but I think anybody who's creating a woodland, should really buy into the principles of the UK Forestry Standard. And to access grants, you basically need to as well. And that is, again, things like fencing, plastic bags, tree guard shelters need to be managed properly when they stop having a functional value in the forest. And then at the bottom one there is that tree shelters and tree guards should be removed, and that also includes bio-based ones as well. And also, we need to think about a circular economy. So before I show you some of our trials, I always ask landowners, you could we consider doing different things before we look at using a guard? I always think a guard should be a last option, really. So good ground preparation, mounding. Always, some of the sites I've worked on, seems to work and get trees away pretty quickly. Increased planting density. There's big browsers in Poland and Scandinavia, but they're planting at 6,000 to 8,000 stems per hectare. I'm not sure Forestry Commission grants would allow that, but it is I guess an opportunity for kind of private woodland owners to give that a go. I guess the issue you've got is if your woodland is really successful and you've got 8,000 stems per hectare, that's going to be really interesting in about 10 years. It'd be interesting trying to walk through it, to be fair. But it seems to work, it seems to work in other parts of the world. Weeding, looking at natural regeneration. Could we put raptor perches up and boxes to control particularly vole damage as well? In the Dales, we've got a massive issue with voles. They are little pests really, and they do like, especially when you've mounded. Ironically, you know, they have a tendency to nest in the mounds, and you put a tree in, and it's almost like you know, watching some sort of cartoon that I'd have watched with a kid, and you just see all the trees kind of disappearing down as well. You know, good fencing, you know, various vole control. There's two different ideas of deer repellent there on either side, which could work in small woodlands. I think on the left hand side, when you've got the oak tree there, that is trico, which is there, which is I hope nobody's having the tea now, but it's a rendered sheep fat basically that deer cannot stand. For some reason, deer and sheep don't mix. So you think if you throw them together, you could create a nice woodland, but of course they both eat the trees, don't they? But that seems to work. You apply it around about twice a year. The only problem with it is you need a PA1 and PA6 kind of spraying certification to do it, and it absolutely stinks as well, and you will not be popular at home. You need to burn everything if you use that stuff. It is quite vile, but it does seem to work. And on the other side there is, I think it's a bit of a novel idea really, but that's actually taping, well, that's a Gorilla Glue sheep's wool to a stem. I think that's quite feasible in a woodland of, you know, if you've got 500, I think I did it on a 500, you know, really small little copse area, you know, 500 tree corner of a field somewhere, but there's no way you can do that for anything more than that really, unless you're really dedicated as well. And then obviously, you know, your final thing there is you know, deer management and culling and deer fencing and things like that. Just some details on our trials over the last years, over the last 4 years. You can see there that we've got various different trial sites. We've used plenty of different alternative guards. Unsurprisingly, survival rate of those guards depends on the type and location. And at the moment, we're obviously reviewing the science all the time in the plastic working group. But UCL did some life cycle analysis for the Woodland Trust, and basically to sequester carbon from the environment, the use of plastic is best if it's going to be recycled, which has kind of gone against everything that we've wanted to believe really over the last last 3 years or so. Now there are caveats to that research as well. You know, some of the newer types weren't part of that research. Obviously, planting a tree is the best way of doing it, and then using fencing is the best way of doing that. But that's what the research is suggesting at the moment. But the issue is it's not being recycled, and there's also concerns over kind of bioplastics. What are the bioplastics? What resources go into creating those bioplastics, and also how well they degrade as well. You will see countless numbers of marketing messages at the moment that say, you know, put this over a tree, or this piece of material will biodegrade after 6 months, and you can just walk away from it. Some of it is not the case. You know, these tests are done, the material actually in the soil as well, crushed up into like a fine powder, and then put into the soil, and they disappear after 6 months, 12 months, or whatever. There's no way I'm going chipping alternative tree guards into a fine powder and putting them in the soil for the hope that they disappear. So I think that the tests don't kind of reflect reality, really. So these are sort of things I've been trialing over the last few years. Some of these products are kind of first and second versions of the products as they came out, and now we're on kind of version 8, 9, 10, and 11 on some of them as well. So you've got sheep's wool, and there's like a nut resin in that one in the top left. The company who make those are hoping to be in some kind of production again this year. I know they've had some various issues. Obviously, sheep's wool, it's a great story, isn't it? You know, actually using kind of British sheep wool to make tree shelters is obviously a really good story. You've got a cardboard guard in the middle there. That cardboard is based on kind of food packaging. So the cardboard that you would get in a like smoked salmon, say, it's based along the similar lines. You've got a PLA, polylactic acid guard in the top right there, which is a spiral guard, which can be everything's biodegradable in the world. You know, nuclear waste is biodegradable, I guess, but that one needs to be taken off and industrially composted at 60 degrees Celsius, I believe. And the last time I looked, I don't think there's any industrial composters in the north of England. The one at the bottom is Tubex Nature, bottom left. And that seems to be, we're not quite sure what's in that at the moment, but you know, that again seems quite popular. And then you've got two almost effectively bog standards. You can get cardboard guards as well. That's an easy tree on the right, and quite a lot of those have been used on kind of early stages of the HS2 project. There's another thing as well. There's a cotton guard on the left hand side there, and then there's that is a high-tex guard on the right, which is sugarcane as well, and that sugarcane from Brazil. Yeah, and but it's kind of an it's a waste product from sugarcane plantations in Brazil, I believe. So don't quote me on that. So the kind of carbon impact of that is negated. And then we've got some more different versions of cardboard guards. That's an allotment in Bentham on the left hand side. And it just shows the kind of different areas of where we've been planting. So when I set up the trials, I wanted to try and use every guard that was out there. I wanted to come up with every different way we would plant trees as a charity in those trials as well. So slightly, I guess it is riparian, ever so slightly on that bottom right one there. Very, very exposed as well. And I wanted to make sure that every guard was tried in every location as well. I was looking for the efficacy of the guard rather than how successful the guard is. I don't know if I've made sense with that, but so for instance, on the top right shot there, there's quite a lot of 0.6 guards in there, 0.75 cardboard guards. I know there's deer on that site, so ideally we should have used 1.2s there, but I just want to, you know, try different guards in different settings and see what actually happened to the material of the guard, rather than if it's a successful guard. But ironically, if the material stays there, it's usually a successful guard anyway. Not everything went to plan, as you can see. So you know, you can kind of see the various bits of damage. The one in the bottom left is an interesting one. That's hair damage. You know, actually scratching at the bottom of a cardboard guard. The top left there, they're actually deer teeth marks. God knows what's in that guard, but the deer seem to like that as well. And then you just see kind of how some of the guards are breaking down there. The Tubex Nature, their early version split quite easily. You know, as I say, probably not the right size for the site there. But then on the one on the right hand side is completely fine. I can actually put my finger through that now, and it's been there 4 years. So for that shelter's, I think it was version 2. You know, they said it would probably last between kind of 4 and 6 years. So that is now starting to break down and doing what it's supposed to do. Thank God the tree in the middle is not going to be a timber tree, because it's going to look weird. But yeah, that's on a windy site. You know, that guard has started to kind of impact to the wind is in the middle. But you can see a plastic guard behind it, which is perfectly straight. Yeah, and this is just some of the issues I've had. So this was a site where it was one of my trial sites, and I was sat there one day, and the farmer hadn't fenced, and he said, "Oh, don't worry about it. The sheep won't go anywhere near it." And I was sat having a brew, and I heard this boomf, boomf, and they were headbutting the tubes, which is great of them. And then, yeah, we had a incursion from these little sausages as well. Oh, not a little, a massive beef cattle, and they actually got through the fencing and then trampled all over the trial site as well. But I guess that's you know, that's life. So this is kind of my view of kind of the present situation from what I see from the trial sites, and we're feeding the data in from our trials into Forest Research, who are doing a national trial with various shelters, thanks to funding from obviously ourselves and other organisations through the Forest Plastic Working Group. So I say our trials have been running since 2021, so already in 21, 22, 20, into the 4th year now. I still can't see an alternative to a plastic tree guard, especially in the uplands. The national trial with forest research at Tunstall Forest and in Avermore may yield different results, but for us in the uplands, there just doesn't seem to be one that will last long enough. And I think that's the issue with the alternative guards as well. I think when we put an alternative guard out, we expect it to mirror plastic and last as long as plastic as well. I've still got guards in one of my woodlands that have been on for 15 years and you can't take them off. Should we have planted there? Probably not really, because if a tree's taking 15 years to get going, should we have planted there? But there's no seed source, so you won't have got any natural regeneration anyway. But at the moment, I just can't seem to find an alternative. The sheep's wool one that I showed earlier is a possibility, I think. Spirals and bioplastic shelters are obviously a useful alternative, but they need to be looked after. Spirals are really good until the tree comes out, especially the branches come out. You find with a guard that the tree will grow straight up and then come out the top, obviously. But with a spiral, it comes out in all different angles, and you need to get on top of that, otherwise the spiral fails. We've had some really mixed results with some of our cardboard products. I've still got ones on site from our original planting, so that's 4 years, and they're only supposed to last. One of them was only supposed to last 6 months. So they are an option, providing a landowner keeps on top of them. Ideal for hedging, I think. I don't think we should be using PVC spirals in hedging anymore. I think a good kind of cardboard alternative is really realistic for PVC shelters. Mainly because you can recycle PVC quite easily, but as you know, if you leave a PVC shelter on a hedge for longer than 4 years, it breaks in your hands, and that's microplastics, isn't it? Which is no use to anybody. If your site is grazed, it still needs fencing, whatever shelter, as I found out, and we've got a real issue with voles as well. So as I was saying, when you looked at the waste hierarchy before, prevent, reduce, reuse, using vole guards is number 2 on that, because you're not using a 0.6 shelter, you're using a vole guard as well. So even kind of minimizing the amount of plastic you use I think is better than just covering your site in it. And there's some of the questions that we've faced in the Dales as well, and I'm sure you do when you're kind of planting your woodlands and managing your woodlands as well. We've got an issue with deer fencing in the Dales. Quite a lot of the land here is open access land, and whenever a deer fence goes up, it's a prison camp. It's like the Dales is shut, and there needs to be kind of a big public conversation on that as well. But it is a really difficult conversation to have when you've got Right to Roam in Scotland. You've got obviously the landowner in Dartmoor that I think he lost his case, didn't he? His case for appeal, but kind of banned wild camping on his land. So as soon as the deer fence goes up in the Dales, we get quite a lot of grief. Bioplastics they say what they are. Some of the products I think you're still going to have to remove from site. The UKFS says you still have to remove from site, and the soil-based tests don't equal kind of real life. The cost of recovery for plastic is quite interesting. So I was saying before that your shelter could cost, plastic shelter could cost £1. So a contractor would effectively charge £1 to put that in. You throw the tree and things like that, it could end up being £5. But I spoke to one contractor who said that he would charge £3 to £4 within the next 5 to 10 years to actually remove shelters. So if you factor that in now compared to in 10 years time, then a biodegradable alternative does look quite financially viable. The problem I've got is that not many farmers I work with are thinking 10 years in advance. There's a big project up in the Dales. They've used 350,000 plastic tree shelters. They're starting to take some off now, but effectively, that is almost like a £1 million liability on your books in 10 years time to remove those shelters. I'm not, my bank manager wouldn't be happy with that, to be fair. So there's all kinds of different ways of considering, but I think we're quite short term as a it's ironic, isn't it, that tree planting is a long-term thing, but we are quite short-term in our kind of economic thinking. But the tide is changing. You know, Woodland Trust did a survey, I think it was last year, of 300,000 of their members, and the plastic issue was the highest on their agenda. And that includes, you know, climate crisis. It includes kind of creating biodiversity. That was the highest thing on there. So, which is why I guess I'm talking to you today. I'll keep going if that's all right. I don't know what I'm doing for time, Sarah, but
we've got about 5 minutes, I guess, and then we'll do a bit of a Q&A.
I'll tell you what,
please keep going.
That's okay. So I'll just say that I'm running a small woodland management plan in the Dales now. So if you've got a site, or any of the owners you work with, Sarah, have got a site in the Dales that's under 3 hectares, then I'm quite happy to write a small woodland management plan for them free of charge, and then we will direct them to a woodland management grant pot, which we will run, so they can actually get access to do some work in the woodlands that come out of that management plan. When we set this up, there was no funding to actually write a management plan for woodlands under 3 hectares. That has now changed, I believe. But we're still going to press ahead with it, because, as I said before, you know, some of our landowners don't particularly want to work with the government and things like that. And it's also to put pressure on, hopefully, the Forestry Commission to actually consider good woodland management grant fund for some of these small woodlands. These woodlands are, you know, we talk about a patchwork of habitats, a mosaic of habitats and things like that. And these small woodlands are mighty marvels. And ironically, the average size of a new UCO scheme is under 3 hectares as well. So it took them a while to realise that before they changed the kind of grant available for woodland management. I won't go into that because I'm running out of time, but I just want to show you kind of Forest Plastic working group. So we were set up in 2019. I'm the co-chair of the group, and we're based around those 3 aims really. So, you know, good practice, research and share information, and also inform and kind of guide people on you know, how to reuse and recover. We're not just a talking shop made up of kind of people who are kind of right on and want to do the right thing. You know, we wanted to make sure that it encompassed every person in the sector, every stakeholder in woodland creation in the sector as well, and this is still growing as well. You know, personally, I think there needs to be a you know, a small woodlands owners group rep on this as well. You know, even you're kind of, you know, working with Small Woodland Owners Association as well. So, you know, kind of all the major NGOs like National Trust, Woodland Trust, DEFRA on there. So you've got Forestry Commission, DEFRA. So it's anybody who's involved with kind of woodland planting come together 4 times a year to kind of share best practice and produce guidance for woodland owners like yourselves. We've done some good stuff, to be fair, and you can see most of this on forestplasticsworkinggroup.co.uk. So we've got the independent tree shelter trial, which should start to spit some results out in the next couple of years. We've done case studies. We've taken members and non-members of the group to look at various kind of tree planting best practice and various tree planting schemes. It's not a closed shop, so if anybody on the call wanted to come to one of those field visits, if you sign up to our newsletter on the website, then you're absolutely more than welcome. In fact, I'd rather speak to guys like yourself than stand with somebody from DEFRA talking about plastic, because you need that kind of breadth of knowledge. And the other stuff that we've got, you know, we're still looking at kind of plastic sign usage. We're trying to get the Woodland Trust to include more of the products that they missed from the first life cycle analysis, so we can actually go out with proper kind of scientific evidence on why a particular type is best. We've just launched a citizen science plastic mapping app that's called Plot That Plastic. So if there's anything you can take from this final slide, it's head to forestplasticworkinggroup.co.uk and download the app. And then you can actually plot where you see plastic tree shelters across the UK. And that will give us the evidence we need to be able to establish kind of volunteering groups to clear. It'll give us an idea of where these guards are, because despite having all those organisations on plastic working group. Trying to find out where they've used plastic is really difficult, probably for obvious reasons, because they've used a ton of it. And it'll give us an idea, say collection hubs and things like that. We're looking for any type of plastic guard that you see as well. And there's an opportunity to put pictures on there as well. So it's been up and running probably like 3 weeks, and we've had over 1 million guards on there plotted as well. So it's really useful. It's just a simple dot on your phone, and we'd really appreciate you to use it as well. And we want to do more recycling hubs. You know, as I spoke about before, we've got this really big opportunity to actually recycle the stuff that's out there, recycle the legacy plastic, and tackle what we're putting out there already. But we're probably going to need some more hubs to do that, especially across the Midlands and, you know, probably right in the middle of the south of the country as well. So we are looking at expanding that. And we've got a big issue with Scotland as well. Scotland only use around about 2% of plastic guards in their planting, because they're obviously really heavy on deer control and other means and things like that. So we want to get hubs in Scotland. We've got a bit of an issue around waste legislation, unfortunately, with how we can temporarily hold waste at a site before it is taken away to be recycled. But we'll get there, and yeah, hopefully provide, you know, people on the call here with viable ways of recycling their plastic. The issue that we're always going to have is it's who actually removes that plastic from sites. And I'm talking to various funders about how we could set up, you know, some kind of national coordinator who could, you know, kind of target volunteer groups to go around the country to have been enabled to do this sort of work as well. So that's something we're working on. The stakeholders in the Forest Plastic Working Group are aware that they need to put their hands up as well, and that includes the FC. You know, they provided a lot of funding to put this material out there. In turn, they've taken on board that they need to get involved in the conversation as well. So yeah, thank you for listening to me. Listen to me for the past kind of 55 minutes. I really appreciate your time. I know there's a lot of stuff coming on the chat. I haven't seen what's in the chat, Sarah. If there's anything abusive, can you not show me? And yeah, if you want to get in contact, that's my email address there. And please download Plot That Plastic. I'd really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks so much. I think we've all learned a lot there. I didn't know the thing about the sheep's wool. Like that, I just never even considered that. So I've got a question for you. You know, with the app and the sort of the tracking the plastic, the Plot That Plastic, just because it's Duke of Edinburgh time at the moment. Could you know, because they have to do an element of community work and volunteering, you could get Duke of Edinburgh kids you could do that nationally.
That is a great idea. Our Green Futures team, which is our kind of youth outreach team, I've teamed up with John Muir Trust in the past to do that, but I will mention that to them. Yeah, even if it's just a case of, you know, before you go out, could you just download this app?
Yeah.
And that yes, fantastic. Thank you.
You email me about that, because I've got access to like be able to contact lots of schools in one go. So maybe we could do something with that actually.
Yeah, thank you.
We have some other questions. So Ian asks, is there a double benefit from timely tube removal? Is it easier to remove tubes in a condition that allows them to be reduced, and it stops the trees avoiding developing a poor form? I think you answered that in there.
Yeah, I think so. I think for the ease of, obviously we use volunteers and we use kids, and being able to take a shelter off in kind of one swoop is a lot easier than waiting for ages. But you find that when it comes to the legacy issue of plastic in the woodlands that I'm in, that kind of 20 years, your plastic it's all over the place. It's shattered, it's kind of folded over, it's buried in the soil, but we've got a duty to remove that. So the kids love doing it. To be fair, they love kind of digging around and things like that. But yeah, I think I don't think there's any issue with leaving it another year. I think as soon as the tree has reached that girth to be taken off, I think it should be taken off. If a deer does damage to that tree after that, then that is just a very, very keen deer.
They deserve the tree at that point.
Yeah. In fact, in some woodlands, you do have kind of sacrificial trees anyway, and that could be a sacrificial tree for deer rubbing, or for a grey squirrel or things like that. But yeah, I think I mean everybody on this call is really invested in their woodlands, aren't they? So they're probably walking their woodlands as often as possible. So you guys will want to do that anyway. But yeah, as soon as it reaches that point, or even before that, if you know that you can control browsers, it's worth taking off. It'll save you so much aggro in the long run.
Yeah. Peter says he uses bramble to keep the deer out, which works. So that's, well, we're not short of bramble in our woods either. So maybe.
I've seen there's been a few. It's ridiculous because we used to do this years ago, didn't we? But there's been a few experiments. We've tried one in one of our woods of actually planting saplings within bramble and seeing what happens. And they don't get browsed by anything. You might get the odd little vole that nips in, or a mouse or something like that. But in the past they used to put 3 or 4 hawthorns around around an oak tree, and it was never an issue. So yeah, we should go back to those kind of silvicultural techniques, I think.
Yeah. I think do voles like sheep's wool if you use that to deter deer?
To
Like
wolves.
voles.
Voles, like I said, wolves. Yeah, I'm up for that. Yeah, so we've tried putting sheep wool, instead of using an mulch mat, we've tried putting sheep's wool around the bottom of stems to see what happens. I haven't really got any evidence of whether it's been successful or not, because sometimes a deer will come and take it anyway. Well, that's quite an interesting, because voles, that's why mounding seems to work, because obviously voles don't like being exposed, do they? They like to hide amongst the kind of undergrowth, and otherwise they get picked off by kestrels and things like that. So I will trial that
I mean,
this winter, and I'll let you know.
we've got on the small woodland owners group, we've got, and if we posted on there, like about 8,000 people would see it. So we could get people to
Yeah, that sounds great
A/B
idea.
test it. Yeah. Oh, this is fun. It's like a big science experiment. Oh, Ben says, thanks so much, Mike. All very useful information.
Thank you, Ben.
While I'd love to protect all my saplings and natural regeneration hazel coppice with hazel poles and brush borders, the manpower required is prohibitive. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Ben, have you got 2 teenage sons? I think you can put them to work to some extent.
So it's an interesting thing, actually, because it does work. There's no doubt about it. I've got a little bit of hazel which I've just coppiced because it was looking quite sad. But where we are, there's no deer control now that the woodland that we own is all broken up. Whereas previously it was one big woodland, and whoever owned it would control the deer. Now there is 0 deer control. So anything which is trying to regenerate, any hazel which is you coppice it, tries to grow, it just gets browsed. So it does work if you then coppice the hazel, make a little fence of hazel poles around it, put the cut hazel around it, and make a brush border so things can't get to it. You can make a lovely, beautiful, organic, kind of natural breakdown tree guard, but it takes a long time to do it. But it does work. But until there's control of the deer, and we can't fence our woodland, it's prohibitively expensive to do that as well. To kind of deer fence it, because there's a whole range of deer and they'll go under anything. So it's a difficult. It's just balance, isn't it? You can't win all of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Ben, watch this space for the army of DOV volunteers that are going to flurry in. You wait.
DOV volunteers use 2.2 rifles or not?
I don't know. Peter suggests that probably the voles would nest in the wall, by the way. So
yeah, they probably, yes, probably right, Pete. I mean, voles nest in tree shelters as well. So there's a number that we pulled out quite recently, and it's quite a surprise when you see them in there.
Cute, though, aren't they? I know them.
Yeah, they are. They are.
Well, I think this will be uploaded to YouTube by within the next 2 or 3 hours. If anybody thinks of any questions, then please either email myself or Mike. I can pass them on to you. One final question, Mike. When you said about the people who live in South Yorkshire, would that be okay if we promoted that in our newsletter, just to let people know, because we will have some people with woodlands in Yorkshire?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so my particular looking at Yorkshire Dales surrounding areas, Forest of Bowland, and then probably North York Moors up that way. as well. So yeah, more than happy to have a conversation. I've got quite a big target to hit in the next 3 years. Around about 50 woodlands into management. So yeah, and especially those small woodlands as well. And it's even better because you can see from the people we've been speaking to today, or I've had the pleasure of speaking to, everybody's really invested in the woodlands, aren't they? So, if we can help people like yourselves, you do a small woodland management plan, and even if it just sits on the shelf afterwards and you don't do anything with it,
Got it.
the FC will give some money eventually for small woodlands.
So,
I'm
well,
convinced of
yeah.
it, so we need to be ready for it.
Yeah, and we're in South Yorkshire. It's also known as Nottinghamshire. It's called really South Yorkshire. So I'll
really South
expect
Yorkshire.
my management plan. Okay, yeah. So Ben's saying if I'll swap contact details between Mike and Ben. I'll let you guys. That was a direct message, but that's fine. Yeah, great stuff. So thank you very much, Mike. And I think we will have some questions come in, so we'll stay in touch, and I'll probably try and get some blurb from you about the grant thing. So
okay.
Hopefully this is the first of the webinars we do together, because I think this has been really good and informative. Thank you so much.
No problem.
And yeah, let me know if you need anything, and if you need anything ever promoting on our socials, just message me and we can always share. So that's fair.
No problem. Thank you everybody.
Great. Thanks for joining, everybody. Thanks to the regular faces. It wouldn't be the same without you, our little community. So yeah, keep coming and see you all soon.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Mike. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.